It was 2 in the morning when I pulled my suitcase into the foyer of our villa. Warm yellow light bled through the crack beneath the living room door. Through the heavy wood, I heard my husband's voice, tender to the point of being cloying, syrupy, and utterly foreign. It pierced my ears like needles. "Baby, Daddy's right here, sweetheart. Mommy's away on business. Daddy's going to put you to bed tonight." The knuckles of my hand, curled around the door handle, went white. I had come home 3 days early for my trip, wanting to surprise him. Instead, he was the one who had a surprise waiting for me. The wheels of my suitcase made a soft, grating sound against the hardwood. I pushed open the door, which had been left slightly ajar. His back was to me. He was bent over the sofa, patting the back of the woman curled up there. A cascade of chestnut hair spilled over the cashmere throw blanket I'd bought in Milan. The coffee table was littered with empty takeout containers and a bottle of red wine. The air was thick with the cloying sweetness of perfume and the sharp tang of alcohol, a suffocating, intimate cocktail. My breath seized in my chest. It felt as if a cold, disembodied hand had wrapped its fingers around my heart and wrung it like a wet rag. He must have sensed a shift in the air. He turned, slowly. The gentle, almost servile expression on his face shattered like a pane of glass the moment his eyes landed on mine. His pupils contracted into pinpricks. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The woman on the sofa stirred, rubbing her eyes as she sat up. Her face was instantly recognizable. Yvonne Zhao, his assistant. 24 years old, 2 years out of college. She favored white blouses and short skirts, and had a way of batting her eyelashes with an air of practiced innocence whenever she spoke. Right now, she was wearing my silk robe, the neckline gaping open below her collarbone. Instinctively, he stepped in front of her, a protective gesture more damning than any confession ever could be. I let go of my suitcase. The handle hit the floor with a dull thud. Yvonne scrambled to cover herself with the throw, her voice dissolving into a theatrical sob. "Mr. Gua, I..." "Shut up." He barked the words at her before turning back to me, a rigid, unconvincing smile plastered on his face. "Honey, you're back early. I thought you weren't coming home until Friday?" Shut up. My voice was so level, so calm, it sounded like a stranger's. I pulled my phone from my bag and lit up the screen. The voice recorder app was running. A red digital counter pulsed in the corner, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. The blood drained from his face, leaving it the color of old paper. Every word he'd just uttered, every simpering, deceitful syllable, had been captured. Yvonne bolted upright. The silk robe's belt loosened, and as she scrambled to catch it, she only managed to pull the neckline open even wider. "Susan, please, you have to let me explain. It's not what it looks like." "What is there to explain?" I cut her off, my eyes locked on his. "Explain why you're wearing my pajamas? Why you're lying on my sofa? Why my husband was just tucking you in?" His Adam's apple bobbed. A slick sheen of sweat beaded at his temples and trickled down the side of his face. He took a tentative step toward me. "Honey, just calm down, okay? Yvonne had to work late. I told her she could crash here for a bit. Honestly, nothing happened. Nothing at all. Marcus Gua." I said his name as if it were a shard of ice. "While I've been gone these past 2 weeks, you sent 3 documents to my email. The first was a draft proposal for restructuring the company's equity. The second was a division of our marital assets. And the third..." I paused, watching his pupils dilate with a terror so pure it was almost beautiful. "Was a digital copy of a divorce petition. Care to guess why I never replied?" His lips began to tremble. Behind him, Yvonne let out a sudden, hysterical shriek. "Marcus, you told me she'd agreed to the divorce. You said she'd signed the papers ages ago." The air in the room went cold and still. Slowly, deliberately, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a silver USB drive. It glinted in the lamplight like a frozen sliver of mercury. He stared at it as if it were a snake coiled to strike. "This contains backups of every bank transaction you've made in the last 6 months. The wire transfers showing how you embezzled company funds to buy an apartment for your mistress. The The scanned copies of the notarized documents where you forged my signature to transfer our jointly held shares in Bright Future Technologies. And one more thing. I took a step forward. He reeled back, stumbling into the coffee table. The empty wine bottle wobbled and crashed to the floor, and a dark red stain began to bloom across the rug, spreading like an arterial wound. The day you went behind my back to file those divorce papers, I was sitting in a cafe across from the courthouse. I watched you walk in. I watched you walk out. I watched you call Yvonne and say, "It's done. That old hag is finally out of our lives." His legs buckled. He collapsed onto the sofa, his face cycling from white to gray to a sickly, mottled green. Yvonne lunged at him, her nails digging into his arm. "You lied to me. You told me she didn't know anything. Get off me." He threw her aside as if she were a venomous insect. He clawed his way back to his feet, reaching out to me with a hand that shook uncontrollably, his voice cracking with desperation. "Honey, please, you have to listen. All of this is a misunderstanding. Let me explain. I can explain everything." "Explain?" A smile touched my lips, and whatever he saw in it made him flinch, as if I'd struck him. "Marcus, do you have any idea why I've been traveling so much these last 6 months? Do you know where I really went on those business trips? Did you know the front desk manager at the Hilton where you take Yvonne is my college roommate's cousin? Or that the head of risk control at the bank you used to embezzle funds was in my MBA cohort? Or that the chief notary at the firm where you forged my signature was my father's student?" His breath came in ragged, shallow gasps. The veins in his eyes were a spiderweb of ruptured capillaries. Yvonne lay slumped on the carpet, the red wine soaking into the hem of her stolen robe. She just stared at me, hollow-eyed, as if I were a demon who had clawed its way up through the floorboards. I pocketed the drive and pulled a neatly folded document from my bag. The sound of the paper unfolding was the loudest thing in the dead quiet room. "This is a resolution passed unanimously by Bright Future's board of directors this afternoon. Given that Marcus Gua, founder and CEO, is implicated in multiple criminal activities, embezzlement, forgery, and actions severely detrimental to the company's interests, the board has voted to terminate his employment, effective immediately, and to initiate a full forensic audit." His knees began to knock together. He gripped the back of the sofa for support, his fingers sinking deep into the leather. "Impossible," he rasped, his voice like sandpaper on gravel. "I'm the majority shareholder. The board can't do this without my consent." "Majority shareholder?" I tilted my head, as if he'd just told a very amusing joke. "You hold 35%. 20 of that is held in trust for my father. The other 15 was pledged to Long River Capital 6 months ago. And the controlling party, behind Long River Capital." I paused, watching the last drop of color drain from his face. "Is me." The focus in his eyes just dissolved. His mouth hung open, a strangled, guttural noise rattling in his throat. Yvonne scrambled across the floor and threw herself at my feet, clutching the hem of my trousers. "Susan, please, I'm so sorry. It was all him. He forced me. He said if I helped him get control of the company, he'd give me shares, he'd marry me. He tricked me. Please, just let me go." I looked down at her. Her young face was a ruin of smeared mascara and snot. Pathetic. I gently pulled my leg free. "Yvonne, your father runs a small construction supply factory back in your hometown. He just landed a 30 million yuan contract with a real estate subsidiary of Long River Capital, didn't he?" Her head snapped up, terror replacing the fake tears. "Your mother's heart bypass surgery was performed at a private hospital in our Long River medical network. They gave you a 30% discount, correct? And your little brother, the one who just graduated and couldn't get a callback from 17 companies, he was fast-tracked into a prestigious position at a Long River Education Training Institute, right?" With each precise, quiet word, the color in her face leached further away. By the time I finished, she had melted into a boneless heap on the floor. "I gave your family all of that because I thought you were a hardworking girl. I asked Marcus to mentor you because I wanted you to have a future. And how did you repay me?" I crouched down, bringing my eyes level with hers. I reached out and used a single fingertip to lift her chin. Her skin was clammy. You slept with my husband. You tried to steal my company. So, tell me, what exactly should I do to you in return? Her tears splashed onto my fingers. She tried to speak, but only a broken, animalistic whimper escaped. I stood and methodically wiped my hand with a sanitizing wipe from my purse before turning back to him. He had completely broken, crumpled in the corner of the sofa, head in his hands, trembling violently. "Wife, please, I know I messed up. I know," he blubbered, raising a face slick with tears and mucus. "Just one more chance. One chance. I'll cut her off completely. I'll do anything you say. The company's yours, the shares are yours, just please. Marcus." I cut him off again. My voice was flat, as if I were discussing a minor fluctuation in the stock market. "When you filed those divorce papers, did you think about giving me a chance? When you were holding her and calling her baby, did you think about giving me a chance? When you embezzled money to buy her an apartment, did you consider giving me a chance? When you forged my signature to kick me out of my own company?" I stepped closer, looming over him. "Did you ever once stop and think, maybe I should give my wife a chance?" His lips quivered. He reached out to grab my jacket, but I stepped back, a small, deliberate motion that shattered whatever was left of his hope. He collapsed, a hollow shell sunk into the cushions. I turned around, grabbed my suitcase, and righted it. The wheels whirred softly as I walked toward the foyer. I stopped at the door and didn't look back. "Marcus, my lawyer will contact you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. The divorce agreement is already signed. All assets in your name, including this house, will be frozen pending the forensic audit. As for the $8.7 million you embezzled..." I let the silence hang for a beat. "That's enough to put you away for a very long time." A guttural, animalistic howl ripped from his throat. I opened the door, and the sharp, cold night air rushed in, scouring away the nauseating perfume. I took a deep breath and walked out without looking back. The door swung shut behind me, sealing off the place I'd once called home, the man I'd once loved, and the 7-year farce of a marriage that had been my life. The elevator descended. The polished metal walls reflected my face back at me. Blank. A mask of ice. My phone buzzed. I swiped the screen. A cascade of push notifications from my banking app scrolled past. Transaction complete. Account ending in 8876. Amount: $12,750,000.00. Transaction complete. Account ending in 3312. Amount: $8,430,000.00. Transaction complete. Account ending in 0098. Amount: $5,600,000.00. Transaction complete. Account ending in 5543. Amount: $3,200,000.00. 4 separate transfers, totaling 30 million yuan. This was the entirety of our liquid marital assets. Every dividend, every bonus he had siphoned from the company over 7 years, using my connections and my capital. It was all resting quietly now in my personal accounts, down to the last penny. The elevator doors opened onto the parking garage. I dialed a number I'd saved 6 months ago, but never called. It rang 3 times. A calm, professional male voice answered. "Mrs. Gua." Everything goes smoothly, like clockwork. I pulled open the car door and slid into the driver's seat. "He's broken." The board vote. Unanimous. Good. I heard papers shuffling in the background. As per the agreement, 51% of Bright Future's equity will be formally transferred to Long River Capital. You are now the de facto controlling owner. The evidence against Mr. Gua has been handed over to the authorities. The formal arrest warrant will be served by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. I buckled my seatbelt and fired up the engine. "Thank you, Arthur. Just doing my job." He paused, a hint of dry amusement entering his voice. "So, what's next for you?" I glanced in the rearview mirror, catching the reflection of the villa's 3rd-floor window. The light was on. A silhouette appeared, Marcus, pressing his hands frantically against the glass, his face a grotesque mask of desperation. The soundproofing was too good. I couldn't hear his screams, Only watch his silent, manic performance. A trapped animal.
A clown.
I hung up the phone, hit the gas, and the black sedan glided out of the garage and into the vast, swallowing darkness. The light in the rearview mirror shrank smaller and smaller until it winked out entirely as I turned the corner.
Just like the marriage. Just like the man. Gone.
01. 7 days earlier. Shanghai Pudong International Airport, Terminal 2. I was pulling my carry-on through the international arrivals gate when my phone started buzzing incessantly in my pocket. I swiped the screen to find a flood of WeChat messages pouring in like a tidal wave. My assistant, Chloe, Susan, Mr. Wood didn't come into the office again. That's the third time this week. Our CFO, David Lee. Boss, something's off with last month's reports. Marcus approved an 8 million yuan payment listed as equipment procurement, but the vendor is a brand new shell company. And from Grace, the board secretary. Susan, when are you coming home? Marcus has been acting strange lately. He's ignoring several major projects, always secretive and distracted. I read them all, one by one. Then I deleted every single one. No replies. Airport announcements echoed through the cavernous arrivals hall, a saccharine voice looping flight information. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and watched the planes take off and land. My reflection stared back at me from the glass. 31 years old. The fine lines at the corners of my eyes seemed more pronounced. My skin looked dull and tired after weeks of international flights, and the dark gray suit I was wearing was creased at the sleeves. I didn't care. I pulled out my compact, touched up my makeup. The lipstick was a bold, classic red. Marcus used to say the color was too aggressive for me, that it didn't suit me. He said he liked me in nude tones. Said it made me look gentle. For 7 years of marriage, no other shade of red had ever entered my makeup bag. Until 3 months ago when I saw the selfie on his phone. Yvonne Zhao, pouting at the camera with glossy, tomato-red lips. In the background, his office. In the comments below, his reply, "Beautiful baby girl." I stared at that photo for 10 minutes. Then I went to the mall and bought 10 different tubes of red lipstick, one from every major brand. A different shade for every day. He'd asked once, why the sudden change? I was applying it in the mirror and didn't even turn around. "I'm getting too old to play the ingenue," I said. He'd looked uncomfortable but hadn't pushed it. Looking back, he probably thought I was making a dig at Yvonne. I wasn't.
I was just reminding myself.
Wake up, Susan. The dream is over. My phone buzzed again. This time it was him. I stared at the contact name, hubby, glowing on the screen for 3 long seconds before I answered. "Hey." His voice was light, breezy, almost cheerful. Soft piano music played in the background. I recognized the playlist. It was the default setting on the smart speaker in our living room. "Did you just land?" "Just got off the plane." "Great. Should I send the driver to get you?" "I'll have Michael pull the car around." "No, I'll take a cab." "Don't be silly. You've been traveling for 2 weeks. You must be exhausted." "Let me." "Marcus." I cut him off, my voice flat. "Is Yvonne with you right now?" The silence on the other end was sudden and absolute. The piano music kept playing, but his breathing had shifted, become heavier, more ragged. After about 5 seconds, he forced out a dry, brittle laugh. "Honey, what are you talking about?" "Yvonne left hours ago. I'm just here at home waiting for you." "Are you?" I joined the queue for a taxi. A dozen people were still ahead of me. That's funny, because I just got a notification from our neighborhood security. The video doorbell at our front gate recorded Yvonne Zhao walking in at 8:40 p.m. It's now 11:30. She hasn't left. His breathing went completely haywire. I could picture him perfectly, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes darting around, his fingers nervously picking at the arm of the sofa. 7 years of marriage had taught me every tell. He did this every time he lied. "Honey, I can explain." She came by to drop off some urgent contracts. There was a document I needed to sign, something critical. She dropped them off and left right away. Maybe the security cameras missed her on the way out. "Marcus." My voice was quiet, almost conversational. The video doorbell at our front gate has a 360-degree panoramic lens. It catches a fly taking off. Do you really expect me to believe that a woman in a spaghetti-strap dress carrying a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout was just there to drop off urgent contracts? There was a muffled thud, like a phone hitting a carpeted floor, followed by a rustling noise. In the background, I could hear a shrill, panicked whisper. "Marcus, what's wrong? Does she know?" A snarled, "Shut the hell up," before he scrambled back onto the line. The false cheer was gone, replaced by a strangled, pleading whine. "Honey, you've got this all wrong. It's a misunderstanding, I swear. Yvonne was just feeling down. She needed someone to talk to. We had a couple of drinks, we talked. Nothing happened. I swear on my life." I actually laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound, and even I didn't recognize it. "Marcus, you know what's interesting? Every time you lie, you touch your left ear with your hand.
Your mother told me that.
Said you've done it since you were a child. So tell me, when you said, 'I swear on my life,' just now, were you touching your ear?" Dead silence. Just the sound of him breathing, ragged and broken, like a punctured lung. I ended the call. The taxi queue had moved, and it was my turn. The driver helped me load my suitcase into the trunk. "Where to, ma'am?" "One Shanghai estate. The Bund." He glanced at me in the rear-view mirror, a flicker of surprise that he quickly masked. The car merged onto the airport expressway, and the glittering skyline of Shanghai rose up to meet us. Neon reflections smeared across the windows like liquid fire. The city was always so alive at night, so bustling and bright. It was like my marriage, a glistening, beautiful facade hiding a rotten, hollow core. My phone buzzed again. Yvonne. I stared at her name flashing on the screen, hesitated, then answered without speaking. Susan. Her voice was a trembling, broken thing. Please don't misunderstand. There's nothing between Mr. Gua and me.
I swear.
It's my birthday today, and I was all alone, and Mr. Gua said I could just come by and hang out for a bit. We just had a drink. We just talked." "Yvonne." I cut through her pathetic monologue. "You're 24 years old, right?" "Why, yes. 24. Birthday is November 7th.
Scorpio.
Your family is from Jingdezhen. Your father runs a small factory, your mother is a teacher, your younger brother is in college. You study business English at Shanghai International Studies University, graduated with a 3.7 GPA, won a scholarship twice. When you applied to Bright Future, I was the one who personally approved your hiring. Do you know why?" A strangled, choked sob. I don't. Because on your resume, you wrote a personal statement. "I want to become an independent and powerful woman, just like Susan Su." My voice was soft, but every word was a razor blade. "Do you know what I hate the most, Yvonne? The thing I detest more than anything else in this world." She didn't answer, just cried harder. "I hate people who say they want to be me while simultaneously trying to replace me. Did you really think you were worthy of that?" A raw, gasping cry erupted from the other end, and then the phone was fumbled. Marcus's voice came on, sharp with indignation. "Susan, that's enough. She's just a kid. If you've got a problem, you deal with me." "A kid?" I laughed again. "A 24-year-old kid? Well, if you like kids so much, why don't you go find one in a kindergarten to sleep with?" He sputtered, choking on his own fury, but I'd already had enough. I hung up, pulled up my WeChat, and blocked Yvonne. Then I blocked him. Both numbers went straight to the blacklist. Silence. Beautiful, blessed silence. The cab entered the city center. The skyscrapers towered overhead, a canyon of glass and steel. I leaned my head against the window and closed my eyes. Over the past 6 months, I had flown to 3 different continents, met with 17 clients, signed 5 major contracts, and brought in nearly $200 million in revenue. I slept less than 4 hours a night. I drank coffee instead of eating meals. When the stomach pain got too bad, I just took painkillers. Everyone said, "Susan, you're such a workaholic. You're so driven." What they didn't know was that I wasn't driven. I was running from the home that no longer felt like home. From the husband who no longer loved me. From a relationship that was slowly suffocating me. But I was done running. It was time to go back. Time to end it all.
My phone buzzed again.
This time it was Arthur Cheen, my attorney. I picked up. Mrs. Gua, you've landed? Yes. All the materials are prepared. The complete package. Marcus's embezzlement, the forgeries, the shell companies, it's all been compiled into a single, airtight file. And that background check you requested on Yvonne Zhao's family? It's finished. He cleared his throat. Her father's factory has been insolvent for over a year. He's over $3 million in debt to the banks. Her mother's heart condition has relapsed, and she requires a second major surgery. The estimated cost is around $500,000. And her younger brother's entire college tuition and living expenses for the last 4 years were paid by Marcus. A total of $280,000. Arthur paused. There's one more thing. Yvonne went to a private clinic last month for a checkup. She's pregnant. 8 weeks. My fingers tightened around the phone, my nails digging sharp crescents into my palm. The pain was a grounding wire, pulling me back from the edge. Does Marcus know? Doesn't look like it. She went alone and hasn't told anyone. It seems she's weighing her options. I opened my eyes and stared at the blurred lights streaking past the window, like rivers of time flowing away into nothing. Arthur, if I file for divorce tomorrow, with the evidence we have, what am I looking at? There was a pause as papers rustled. Under the Civil Code, a spouse at fault can be penalized heavily during the division of assets. Marcus's faults include infidelity, asset stripping, forgery, and embezzlement. Combined with the evidence that he attempted to forcibly remove you from the company, I'd estimate you could claim at least 70% of the marital assets, probably more. Additionally, because his actions damaged the company, as the majority shareholder, you can sue him for damages. A preliminary estimate puts that compensation figure around $20 million. $20 million. I felt the corner of my mouth twitch. Marcus had schemed and plotted to kick me out, and his reward would be a 20 million yuan debt and a prison sentence. Also, Arthur's voice grew more serious. Marcus filed a divorce petition with the court last week. He's claiming long-term abandonment of the family due to career obsession. He forged your signature on the filing and somehow found 2 witnesses willing to testify that you were having inappropriate relationships with clients. The court has already accepted the case. The first hearing is scheduled for the 15th of next month. My breath caught for a moment, then slowly, rhythmically, evened out. Understood. So, what's our move? We stick to the plan. Call the board meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Dump every piece of evidence we have. I want Marcus Gua to be completely, irreversibly destroyed within 24 hours. Understood. He hesitated. Susan, are you okay? I smiled. I'm fine. I've never been better. I hung up. The cab was pulling into the private, tree-lined drive of my neighborhood. The security guard recognized my face and waved us through. The car descended into the underground parking garage, and I paid the fare and pulled my suitcase out. The elevator rose silently. In the polished metal walls of the cab, I saw my reflection. Perfectly applied makeup, a cold, unreadable expression. It was a mask I had perfected. The elevator chimed softly. The doors slid open. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked toward the familiar door. My fingerprint unlocked the deadbolt with a soft click. Warm yellow light poured out, along with the soft strains of the piano playlist. The air was laced with that same cloying mix of alcohol and cheap perfume. Marcus was on the sofa, a wine glass in his hand. When he saw me, he jerked to his feet so violently that red wine sloshed over the rim and splattered across his white dress shirt, blooming like a gunshot wound. "Ho, honey." His voice was a tremor. I stood in the foyer. I didn't step inside. My eyes swept the room with surgical precision. The coffee table held 2 glasses. One had a lipstick stain on the rim, a bright, glossy tomato red, the same shade from Yvonne's selfie. The cashmere throw I'd bought in Italy was bunched on the sofa, a few long, chestnut hairs clinging to the fabric. And there, barely hidden beneath a cushion, was a scrap of black lace.
A bra.
My pupils contracted, then relaxed. I was calm. I was ice water. Marcus. My voice was low, but it cut through the music and the quiet hum of the air conditioning. I want a divorce. The wine glass slipped from his grasp. It shattered against the floor, shards of crystal scattering across the marble, the red wine pooling out like blood. Like our marriage. Utterly, completely shattered. 02. Marcus's face went absolutely bloodless. His mouth was stuck in a gaping, silent O of shock, and the only sound he could produce was a thin, reedy wheeze. His eyes were wide, the pupils contracted to sharp points of utter disbelief. A bead of sweat traced a path from his temple down to his collar. He stumbled forward a step, the crunch of glass under his shoe sharp and jarring, but he didn't even seem to notice. He just stared at me, his lips trembling. Wife, what did you just say? I said. My voice was clear as a bell as I released my suitcase, letting it thud to the floor of the foyer. I want a divorce. Each word was a hammer blow in the silent room. He swayed on his feet and grabbed the back of the sofa for support, his knuckles bleaching white from the strain. No, impossible. He shook his head in violent denial, his voice a dry, scraping rasp. Honey, you have to let me explain. Tonight, it's all a huge misunderstanding. Yvonne, she just… Marcus. I cut him off and pulled my phone from my pocket, swiping the screen and opening my photo gallery. I found the image and held it up in front of his face. It was taken in a high-end French restaurant, Camelot, intimate. He and Yvonne were sitting across from each other, and he was sliding a diamond ring onto her finger. She was beaming, her eyes crescents of joy, her other hand pressed to her mouth in a gesture of theatrical, delighted surprise. The photo was time-stamped 3 months ago, the exact night I was supposedly away on business in Shenzhen. His pupils dilated in pure, primal shock. His chest began to heave. That's Le Jardin. Your favorite spot. Third table by the window. My voice was clinical, detached. That ring is a 3-carat Cartier, VVS 1 Clarity. It costs 680,000 yuan. You expensed it under marketing and promotion and wrote client gift on the receipt. With every precise detail, another layer of color drained from his skin. He couldn't hold himself up anymore. He collapsed onto the sofa, his head in his hands, clawing at his own hair. How? How could you? How do I have this photo? I put my phone away and walked over to the single armchair opposite him. I sat down, crossing my legs with the poised composure of a CEO about to open a hostile takeover meeting. Marcus, you didn't seriously believe I spent the last 6 months jetting around the globe to land new clients, did you? He wrenched his head up, his eyes now a roadmap of ruptured veins. I visited 17 cities. I continued. And I met with 34 private investigators. I have a complete, irrefutable chain of evidence detailing your infidelity. Hotel records, wire transfers, audio recordings, photographs, and video. Your first hotel rendezvous with Yvonne was on November 7th of last year, her birthday. The Hilton, executive suite. You expensed the room under client entertainment. I was supposed to come home for dinner that night. You told me you had to work late, so I ate alone. I believed you. I even texted you to remind you not to drink too much. You texted me back a little heart emoji, and then you wrapped your arms around your 23-year-old assistant and walked into a hotel room. Marcus started to shake. It wasn't a tremble of anger. It was pure, abject, bone-deep terror. The second time was Valentine's Day, I said. You told me you had to fly to Beijing for an investor meeting. Instead, you took her to Sonia, the Atlantis, Poseidon Suite, 88,000 a night. You expensed it as a corporate team-building retreat. The only team being built was the two of you. There's a lovely photo of you with your arm around her waist, her in a bikini, a stunning ocean view behind you. Would you like to see it? The blood had completely retreated from his lips, leaving them a lifeless, parched blue. He stared at me as if he had never seen me before in his life. You've known for that long? 3 months, I said. I let a small, cold smile flicker across my face. He physically recoiled at the sight of it. 3 months ago, Yvonne posted a story on her social media. It was a picture of her sitting in your office chair, holding your coffee mug. The caption was, "Stealing the boss's coffee. Think he'll be mad?" One of your colleagues commented, "Brave girl. That mug was a gift from Susan." And Yvonne replied with a cheeky tongue-out emoji and wrote, "The boss says what's his is mine from now on." I paused, letting the knife twist. That night, I asked you what she meant by that. You said she was just joking around, a silly kid, don't take it seriously.
I said, okay.
And the very next morning, I hired the first investigator. His breathing was ragged, desperate. Suddenly, he lunged forward, slamming his hands on the coffee table, his torso leaning toward me, his eyes wild. "You've been scheming against me this whole time." "Scheming?" I raised an eyebrow. "You cheated. You stole. You forged my name. You tried to destroy me. And you're accusing me of scheming?" I stood up, moving until I was barely half a foot away from him. I could see the reflection of my own face in his terrified eyes, an emotionless mask. "Do you know what it was like for me, Marcus? Lying in a different hotel room every night, staring at the ceiling, asking myself what I did wrong. Why didn't you want me anymore? I couldn't figure it out.
Until I saw the evidence.
The bags, the jewelry, the apartment you bought her. You holding her, laughing like a lovesick teenager. You whispering in her ear, 'Baby, once I get rid of the old hag, this company is all ours.'" My voice was soft, conversational, but each word sank into his chest like a blade. I never said that. You did." I pulled a second phone from my bag, pulled up an audio file, and hit play. His voice, slurred and thick with arrogant satisfaction, filled the room. "Don't you worry, Yvonne. That idiot Susan still thinks I'm burning the midnight oil for the company. She has no clue I've been transferring all our core clients to the shell company I set up. Once the time is right, I'll divorce her and leave her with nothing. Bright future will be ours. You can buy whatever you want, go wherever you want. I promise, I'll give you a life 100 times better than anything she ever had." The recording clicked off. The silence that followed was absolute death. He stared at the phone in my hand, as if it were a ticking bomb. "That was last month," I said, pocketing the device. "You were drunk at a bar on the Bund. She drove you home, and she secretly recorded you, probably wanting to save your sweet nothings. She never imagined her phone would be stolen the next day. The thief sold it on the second-hand market, where it was purchased by one of my investigators." I waited a moment, letting it sink in. "And you know what else was on that phone, Marcus? Yvonne was never planning on staying with you long-term.
She was only interested in your money.
She had 3 other men on the hook. One of them was the VP of Titan Tech, our biggest competitor. She sold him our trade secrets for $500,000. His eyes widened impossibly further. He stumbled backward. "No, you're lying. She wouldn't." "Wouldn't she?" I pulled a stack of glossy photos from my bag and tossed them onto the coffee table. They fanned out like a hand of poker cards revealing a losing game. Photos of Yvonne with different men, feeding each other in a restaurant, kissing in a car, embracing in a hotel hallway. The final photo was the money shot, her sliding a USB drive across a cafe table to a middle-aged man. That man was Liu Jiqiang, the VP of Titan Tech. Marcus stared at the photos, his bloodshot eyes looking like they were about to bleed. He tried to reach for them, but his hands were shaking too badly. "It's all real," I said, sitting back down. "So, Marcus, you betrayed me. You betrayed the company. You destroyed our 7-year marriage. And it was all for a woman who was playing you from the start. Was it worth it?" He didn't answer. He was hollow, a shell with a man-shaped vacuum inside. Then, after a long, agonizing silence, the tears came. He crawled off the sofa onto his knees and shuffled toward me, grabbing the leg of my trousers, his voice erect, sobbing mess. "Wife, I messed up. I know I messed up. Please, one chance. Just one more chance. I will end it with her. I will do anything you say. The company is yours, the money is yours. Just please, please don't leave me." I looked down at him. This proud, charismatic man who had sworn to protect me. He was on his knees, a weeping, broken dog. It was just sad. There was no pity in my heart, only a profound, bone-deep weariness and a cold disgust. Marcus. I pulled my leg free of his grasp. It's too late. The moment you decided to betray me, it was over. The moment you decided to steal money for her, it was over. The moment you decided to forge my signature. I paused, my voice dropping to a sub-zero whisper. We were already finished. He broke down completely, his shoulders heaving, tears and snot streaming down his face. Please, I'm begging you. I just watched him cry, watched him crumble, watched him drown in the despair he had so carefully cultivated. 6 months of sleepless nights, staring at ceilings, asking why. And now I had the answer. Because he was greedy. Because he was a fool. Because he thought I was weak. He was wrong. My phone buzzed. Arthur. * board members notified. Meeting set for 9 a.m. Full attendance confirmed. * I replied received and pocketed the phone. I looked back at him, a wreck on the floor.
Marcus.
9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Emergency board meeting. I will be presenting all of the evidence against you. You might want to think about how you're going to explain yourself. His head snapped up, panic flooding through the despair. No, you can't. I'm the founder. I'm the CEO. You're the founder? I shook my head. Marcus, you seem to forget. The initial funding for Bright Future came from my father. When the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, I was the one who worked 72 hours straight to land our first major client. For 7 years, I have been the one making the crucial decisions. You were just a figurehead. And now, I'm taking back what was always mine. The company. The money. This house. And I held his terrified gaze. Every single remaining day of your freedom. He scrambled backward, gibbering, unable to form words. I turned and grabbed my suitcase. As I reached the door, I paused, again not bothering to look back. Oh, and Marcus. Yvonne is pregnant. 8 weeks. Whether the child is actually yours, well, you figure that out. I opened the door and left, the sound of his guttural, inhuman howls cut off by the heavy door closing behind me. The elevator ride down was silent. My face in the metal reflection was a perfect, emotionless mask. But beneath it, my heart was a shattered, bleeding mess I was holding together with sheer force of will. 03. 9:45 the next morning. The 28th floor conference room at Bright Future Technologies. I sat at the head of the long table, a cup of black coffee untouched in front of me. No sugar, no cream. Bitter enough to keep a person brutally awake. 7 people were in the room. The 6 other directors were all founding members, men who had built this company alongside me and Marcus for the past 7 years. Now, their faces were grim. No one was speaking. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioning and the oppressive weight of dread pressing down on the room. To my left was David Zhang, our second largest shareholder and an old friend of my father's. 62 years old, silver-haired, with eyes still sharp as flint. He was tapping his knuckles rhythmically against the polished tabletop, a nervous tick I'd seen 100 times before. When things were bad, he tapped. Susan. David finally broke the silence, his voice low and gravelly. Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this? I took a sip of the bitter coffee. Uncle David, the evidence is undeniable. I slid a thick manila envelope across the table to him. It's all in there. The embezzlement, the forgery, the shell companies. Plus the photos and recordings of the affair. He didn't open it. He just looked at me, his expression a complex mix of sympathy and corporate caution. I know you've been wronged. What Marcus did, it's unforgivable. But we're on the verge of the IPO. If a scandal this big breaks now, the damage to our reputation. Uncle David, I interrupted, my voice firm but respectful. If we let him stay, he will hollow this company out the moment we go public. The loss won't just be reputational. It will be the complete destruction of shareholder value. Your value. My father's. Everyone's at this table. 7 years of our lives. He fell silent. The other directors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Across from me, Thomas Wong, our finance director and one of Marcus's old college buddies, cleared his throat. His face was pale and slick with sweat. Susan, I think we need to be a bit more measured here. Marcus is the founder. Without him, there is no bright future. Even if he made mistakes, surely we can handle this internally. Give him a chance to make things right. Handle this internally? I smiled, and Thomas physically flinched. Thomas, that $8.7 million he embezzled, you helped him cook the books for that, didn't you? The blood drained from his face, so fast, I thought he might faint. I don't know what you're. Last month, on the 15th, Marcus had you transfer $3 million under the marketing budget to an entity called Apex Trading. Apex Trading is a shell company. Its legal representative is Yvonne Zhao's cousin. The money went directly into an account used to buy Yvonne an apartment in Pudong. I have the full paper trail. So, Thomas, I'll ask you again. Did you know? His composure shattered. He yanked a handkerchief from his pocket and dabbed frantically at his forehead, his fingers trembling. I didn't know. I was just following orders. Marcus said it was a kickback for a client. A kickback? I pulled a bank statement from the envelope and tossed it in front of him. The transfer to Apex was made on the 15th. The full amount was transferred to Yvonne Zhao's personal account the same day. The day after that, she walked into a real estate office and paid a down payment. Show me the client who needs a kickback sent directly to the mistress's bank account. Thomas was speechless. He just sat there, head bowed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The other directors were staring at him with a mixture of fury and contempt. Uncle David sighed heavily, picked up the bank statement, studied it for a long moment, and then slammed it down on the table with a crack that made everyone jump. Thomas, you are a disgrace. Director Zhang, please, he forced me. He said if I didn't help him, he'd expose the money I borrowed from the company years ago. You were embezzling before this? David shot to his feet, his face thunderous. Do you have any idea what you've done? This is criminal conspiracy. Thomas completely melted down. He buried his face in his hands, sobbing about his son's college tuition and his wife's medical bills. David cut him off with a sharp chop of his hand. You're fired, effective immediately. Every penny you took will be returned, or I will personally escort the police to your house. Now get out. Thomas stumbled from the room in a daze. The door clicked shut with a funereal finality. The dynamic in the room had shifted seismically. The remaining directors weren't looking at me with sympathy anymore. It was awe and a healthy dose of fear. They finally understood this wasn't a discussion about how to handle Marcus.
It was a loyalty test.
And Thomas had just shown them the cost of failing. David sat back down, took a few deep breaths, and nodded at me. Continue. I distributed the remaining dossiers. These are copies of everything. I've also confirmed that Marcus has been systematically diverting our core client contracts to shell companies he controls. We've conservatively lost $20 million in profits. Our head of sales, Director Lee, can verify this. All eyes turned to the man sitting at the far end of the table. Lee was another old-timer, someone Marcus had personally promoted. He looked like he was about to be sick. Susan, I can explain. Director Lee, the Huatai Group contract. Marcus ordered you to divert it to a company called Starlight Tech, correct? His lips trembled. Did you know that Starlight Tech's legal representative is Yvonne Zhao's father? A collective gasp went around the table. Lee's face turned ashen. I didn't. He just told me it was a strategic partner. I didn't know it was her father. You diverted a 7-figure contract to a company owned by our CEO's mistress's father, and you didn't think to ask any questions. David's voice was heavy with weary disgust. You're fired, Lee. Get those clients back, or face the consequences. Lee was let out by security, leaving only the core board. Uncle David looked at me, a grim resignation settling on his face. Any more bombs to drop, Susan? Let's get it all out now. I nodded and pulled out the final document. This is the divorce petition Marcus filed with the court last week. He's claiming I abandoned the family. He forged my signature and suborned witnesses to perjure themselves, claiming I had affairs with clients. The first hearing is in a month. David read the document, his hands beginning to shake. Not with fear, with a deep, paternalistic rage. That bastard. After everything you've done for this company. He wants to leave me with nothing, I said, my voice quiet but ringing with steel. Uncle David, I didn't call this meeting out of vengeance. I called it to protect this company from a man who would burn it to the ground for his own ego. If he stays, we all lose. Our people, our investors, our 7 years of sacrifice. I need a vote. The room fell into a profound silence. David stared at the forged divorce petition for a long time before lifting his head, his eyes red-rimmed. What do you propose? I laid out the resolution. 1. Immediate termination of Marcus Gua as CEO and removal from all company positions. 2. A full forensic audit and legal action to recover all embezzled funds. 3. Filing of a criminal complaint with the authorities. 4. My temporary appointment as CEO. 5. The indefinite suspension of our IPO until this is fully resolved and the company is stabilized. There was a minor uproar at the last point, but I held my ground. If this scandal detonates post-IPO, the shareholder lawsuits will bankrupt us. We pause now to survive.
Or we go public and die.
The choice is yours. The directors looked at David. He was the bellwether. He looked at me for a long, searching moment. He was looking for cracks, for weakness. He found none. I vote yes. One by one, the others fell in line. Unanimous. The meeting was adjourned. As the others filed out, David stopped and placed a heavy, warm hand on my shoulder. You did well, Susan. Your father, he'd be proud. I just nodded, a sudden, sharp pressure building behind my eyes. I held it in until he left, and I was alone in the vast, empty conference room. I walked to the window and looked out at the Shanghai skyline. The storm was coming. A cleansing, brutal tempest.
My phone rang.
Arthur. The board vote was complete. Then it's time to tighten the net, I said and hung up. I dialed another number, one I'd been given by a contact in the Financial Crimes Division. Detective Liu? It's Susan Su.
You can move in now.
He's in his office, likely destroying evidence.
Yes.
I'll be here. I hung up. Outside the window, the sky was a churning, ominous gray. It was about to pour. Marcus, I thought. It's over. 04. 2 p.m. Bright Future Technologies. The CEO's office. Marcus was hunched over his desk, frantically feeding documents into a shredder that was whirring and groaning with the strain. Bank statements, contract copies, internal transfer authorizations. Evidence of his crimes was being turned into confetti as sweat poured down his gray face and soaked the back of his shirt. Faster, faster, he muttered, his hands shaking as he shoved another stack into the machine's jaws. The sky outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was a bruised, swollen purple, ready to burst. This morning, he'd received the board meeting notice from Susan. Just the formal, coldly worded memo, no explanation. He knew what it meant. She was coming for him. He had to destroy everything before she could use it. The shredder let out a final, grinding screech and jammed. Piece of crap. He kicked it hard and knelt down, jamming his fingers into the slot to pull out the clogged paper. The metal edges sliced his finger, blood welling up and smearing across the paper, but he didn't feel a thing. He was an animal in a trap. The office door banged open. He scrambled to his feet. His assistant, a terrified-looking young woman, stammered, "Mr. Gua, there are police officers here to see you." 3 men in plainclothes walked in, their faces hard. The lead officer, a square-jawed man with the calm, predatory eyes of a career detective, flashed a badge. Marcus Gua? Financial Crimes Unit. You're wanted for questioning on charges of embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, and forgery. Please step away from the desk. Marcus's world tilted. This is a mistake. I'm the CEO. You can't just barge in here. We can and we have, the detective, whose name was Liu, said flatly. He gestured, and his 2 colleagues moved forward, flanking Marcus. And destroying evidence in front of us is just making things worse for you. They grabbed his arms. You can't do this. Let go of me. He struggled, but he was a soft, pampered executive against men trained to deal with far more dangerous individuals. As they marched him out, the office had filled with employees, a sea of shocked, white faces. He could hear the whispers, "Oh my God, they're arresting him." He really did it. Susan's in charge now. He was paraded down the hall like a common criminal, his head bowed, shame and rage battling for dominance. The elevator doors opened. Standing inside, impeccable in a dark gray suit, her red lipstick perfect, was Susan. She was holding the Hermes bag he'd given her for her birthday last year. He'd paid $30,000 for it. Now she stood there, holding it, watching him being dragged in handcuffs. It was a tableau she had orchestrated down to the last detail. His vision went red.
You
did this to me." She didn't answer. She just looked at him, her eyes completely empty. There was no anger, no triumph. Just a terrifying, placid calm. The elevator doors closed, sealing the four of them in the small, mirrored space. "You viper," he spat, thrashing against the cops. "What did I ever do to you? 7 years I gave you. You're going to destroy me over a mistake." She let him rant, his words a torrent of foul, desperate filth. Finally, she spoke, her voice so soft and cold it cut through his rage like a scalpel. "Marcus, the money you stole, the forged documents, the fake divorce petition, it all adds up. I imagine you'll be eligible for parole in about 12 years. He choked on his own fury. "I destroyed the evidence. You have nothing. Nothing." She smiled then, a terrifying, serene smile. She pulled a silver USB drive from her bag and held it up. "Did you really think I'd keep the originals in a place you could access? I gave you access to a honeypot, Marcus. Everything you just shredded were beautifully made duplicates. This has it all. The real transfers, the real signatures, the real proof that you're a thief and a liar. The police already have their copy." The fight drained out of him so fast his knees buckled. He would have fallen if the officers weren't holding him up. "You knew the whole time." 3 months, she said, putting the drive away. "I gave you chances, Marcus. I asked you about the photo, the ring, the money, and you lied. Every single time. You looked me in the eye and lied. You made this happen."
Not me. You.
The elevator doors opened onto the ground floor. A wall of noise hit them. The lobby was packed with reporters, cameras flashing like a strobe light apocalypse. The press had been tipped off.
Of course they had.
Susan had thought of everything. "Mr. Gua, is it true you stole from your own company? Who is the woman you were having an affair with? Did you forge your wife's signature?" The cameras captured him in his full, miserable, weeping glory as the police muscled him through the scrum and out to a waiting patrol car. As he was shoved into the back seat, he twisted to look back. Susan was still standing at the elevator, a lone figure of absolute poise and command, watching him go. Then she turned and walked away without a second glance. The car door slammed. The engine started. The city scrolled past the window, a blur of gray and neon. He stared at it, and a strange, broken laugh bubbled up from his chest. "You win, Susan, you win." The laugh warped into a choked, hysterical sob. He was a man drowning, and there was no one left to throw him a rope. At the station, he was marched into a freezing, windowless interrogation room. Detective Liu sat across from him, a thick case file on the table. The questions were relentless, the evidence insurmountable. One by one, the charges were laid out. The embezzled millions, the shell companies, the forged signatures, the conspiracy with Thomas Wong and the sales director. They had everything. "And Yvonne Zhao," Liu said, leaning forward. "She's pregnant. You knew that." Marcus's head, which had been hanging low, jerked up.
What?
"She hasn't told you? 8 weeks. Your child, presumably, though given her track record, who knows?" He let that hang in the air for a moment before sliding another document across the table. "She's also a material witness in the corporate espionage case we're building against Titan Tech. She sold them your client list." Something inside Marcus just broke. A clean, complete snap. "Yvonne." His sweet, innocent baby. A con artist playing him the whole time. He stared at the wall, and for the first time in his life, he saw himself clearly. A greedy, stupid, pathetic fool. He admitted to everything. 8 p.m. My villa in one Shanghai estate. I was curled on the sofa, my laptop open to the stock ticker. Since the news of Marcus's arrest broke at 2 p.m., Bright Future's share price had gone into freefall. Down 30% in 6 hours. 15 billion in market cap, erased. I wasn't panicking. I was strangely, deeply calm. My phone buzzed. Uncle David. Susan, the stock is tanking. Should we issue a statement? I typed back. No. Let it fall. The harder it crashes, the more dramatic the rebound. What the market needs isn't just a statement, Uncle David. It needs a story. A hero, I plugged a USB drive into my laptop and opened a folder containing hundreds of pages of technical patents and legal documents. Then I typed out another message to David. Remember 3 years ago, when Titan Tech refused to be acquired by us. They said Bright Future was a hollow shell with no core tech. Well, those business trips I took? I wasn't running away. I was building an arsenal. I've personally acquired 3 companies, an NLP lab in Silicon Valley, a computer vision firm in Munich, and a robotics control company in Tokyo. Cutting-edge AI. The patents are all signed over to Bright Future. I paid $12 billion out of my own pocket, backed by my father. My phone rang about 30 seconds later. David's voice was trembling with a kind of manic, disbelieving hope. Susan, is this real? The contracts are signed. The patents are ours. All ours, I confirmed. The market is bleeding because they think Marcus was our only future. They're about to find out he was just dead weight. Tomorrow morning, we hold a press conference. We announce Bright Future's pivot to becoming a global AI powerhouse. We announce that the board and senior management will be injecting $5 billion of our own capital to buy back stock. I, personally, will be investing $1 billion. David was speechless for a moment. Then he let out a long, shuddering breath. Your father, he knows about this? He's the one who loaned me the $12 billion. At a price. 10% equity. He's betting on me, Uncle David. I'd like you to bet on me too. I will. We all will. His voice was fierce. I'll have the PR team draft the announcement. We go live at 9 a.m. sharp. I hung up and leaned back, closing my eyes. The exhaustion was a physical weight, pressing me into the cushions. I was so tired, but there was one more snake to deal with. The gate security intercom buzzed. A patrol guard informed me that a young woman was at the gate, refusing to leave, claiming she had to speak to me. Yvonne. I told them to let her through. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing there, a shivering, pathetic mess in the cold night air. She was wearing a thin coat, her hair lank, her face blotchy from crying. The confident, seductive vixen was gone, replaced by a terrified child. Susan, please, I need to talk to you. I didn't invite her in. I just stepped out onto the porch. Talk. She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I know what I did was unforgivable. But Marcus, he has something on you. A document. He put it in a safe deposit box, and he said if he ever went down, he'd make sure it destroyed you too. I kept my expression completely blank. What kind of document? I don't know. I swear I don't know the details. He just said it would. It would prove you were an unfit wife. That it would make the judge give him everything. I thought if I warned you, you might. Maybe you could let me go? Not press charges against my family. So that was her angle. Desperate self-preservation, not remorse. Noted. I'll look into it, I said, my voice a flat, disinterested monotone. Now leave. She started to cry again, a blubbering, ugly sound. Please, Susan. My father's business is ruined. The contracts are gone. My mom's surgery, they canceled it. My brother was expelled from his program. We have nothing. Please, just let us go back home. We'll disappear. I looked at her for a long moment, This girl who had tried to steal my life, now reduced to begging on my doorstep. I felt nothing. Not pity, not anger. Just a mild, clinical disgust. Leave Shanghai tonight. Don't ever come back. If I see your face again, I will bury what's left of your family, so deep they'll never see daylight. Understand? She nodded frantically, sobbing her thanks, and scrambled away into the dark like a cockroach exposed to a sudden light. I went back inside, poured myself a stiff drink, and dialed Arthur. Arthur, Marcus has a dead man switch. Something in a safe deposit box, meant to be used as a nuclear option in the divorce. Arthur was quiet for a moment. Do you know what it is? I have a guess, I said, staring out at the glittering city lights. Call the court. Ask them to check the evidence file submitted by Marcus's lawyer for the divorce case. Look for a DNA test. A DNA test? On whom? On our unborn child, I said, my voice utterly hollow. I miscarried 3 years ago. He's going to claim the baby wasn't his. That I had an affair. It's his one remaining play. I'll find it and have it independently verified at a federal lab immediately, Arthur said, his voice hard. If it's a fake, he's just added evidence tampering to his list of charges. Find it, Arthur, and then bury him with it. I hung up. The rain finally began to fall, streaking the window glass. The storm was here, and I was ready to dance in it. 06. The next morning, the lobby of Bright Future was packed to the walls with media and financial analysts. The tension was palpable. The previous day's scandal had sent shockwaves through the market, and everyone was waiting to see if the company would implode. I stood in the wings, listening to David Zhang give a masterful preamble, calming the waters and acknowledging the gravity of the situation without feeding the sharks. Then he introduced me. Our interim CEO, and the driving force behind Bright Future's new strategic vision, Ms. Susan Su. I walked onto the stage to a blinding volley of flash photography. I was wearing a crisp, cream-colored power suit and my war paint, the same bold red lipstick. I looked out at the skeptical, hungry faces and smiled. Good morning. Yesterday, this company was rocked by the criminal actions of a single individual, its founder, Marcus Gua. His betrayal was a personal and professional wound. But let me be absolutely clear, a wound is not a fatality. I clicked the remote, and the massive screen behind me lit up with schematics, patent diagrams, and the sleek logos of 3 international tech firms. For the past 6 months, while fulfilling my operational duties, I have been negotiating the strategic acquisition of 3 AI technology leaders. NLP Tech in Silicon Valley, Vision AI in Munich, Robot Control in Tokyo. As of 8 a.m. this morning, the deals are closed. Bright Future now holds the patents to a suite of technologies that place us, as of this moment, at the absolute cutting edge of commercial artificial intelligence. The room went completely silent. Jaws were hanging. The financial reporters stopped typing and just stared. I laid it all out, the 12 billion yuan investment, backed by Long River Capital and my personal equity, the integration roadmap, the projected revenue models. The narrative of this company has been one of potential mired by poor leadership. That narrative ends today. To prove our commitment to this new direction, I am announcing a management-led buyback initiative. Over the next month, our directors and senior leadership will inject 5 billion yuan of our own capital back into the company's stock. I am personally investing 1 billion. Pandemonium. The questions came in a machine gun fire. Ms. Su, is the funding truly secured? What does this mean for the IPO? Is it true you are divorcing Mr. Gua? I handled each one with clinical precision, delivering the message I had crafted. The story of the hero. The phoenix rising from the ashes. By the time I stepped off the stage, I knew I had them. The stock ticker on the side of the room, which had been frozen in a pre-market slump, started to flicker green. 07. The next day, I drove to the detention center. The meeting I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. I sat in the sterile, cold visiting room, separated from Marcus by a thick pane of glass. He shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost weight, his eyes hollow, a dark bruise blooming on his cheekbone. He looked like a ghost. A miserable, defeated ghost. He picked up the phone and his voice was a dry rasp. Wife. Don't. We are not married in any sense that matters anymore. He flinched. I signed the papers. I'm aware. You came, he said, a spark of desperate hope in his dead eyes. I told him I had a document that could ruin you. I lied. I had to see you. One last time. I studied him. You are a pathological liar, Marcus.
But I knew that when I came.
I came because I wanted to see your face when you realized you lost. His lip trembled. They say I'll get 12 years. I'll be 50 when I get out. I've lost everything. You've taken everything. You took it from yourself, I said, my voice level. But there's one thing you tried to take that you failed at. The document you have in the safe deposit box. The DNA test. His head snapped up, the despair replaced by a flash of ugly, feral cunning.
So you found out about that?
It's real. A paternity test proving the baby you lost wasn't mine. I have the original. It proves you're an adulterer. It will destroy you. I let him have his moment of vicious triumph. I let him believe he still had a weapon. Then I pulled a folded piece of paper from my bag and held it flat against the glass. He looked at it. He read the letterhead. Shanghai Central Forensic Laboratory. Document Verification Report. And the subject line. Analysis of paternity tests submitted by Marcus Gua. The conclusion. Forgery. Digital manipulation of test data detected. And a secondary report from a legitimate, certified lab. Reanalysis of preserved fetal DNA sample against Marcus Gua's DNA profile. Match confirmed. 99.99% probability of paternity. The color didn't drain from his face. It just died. All the fight, all the scheming, all the venom, it just evaporated into the sterile air. He stared at the real test, the one proving he was the father of the child his affair had killed, and his whole body began to tremble. No, you faked that. The lab that verified your forgery is run by a student of my father's. The lab that did the real test is the most accredited in the country. And the black market doctor you hired to fake the first test? He's been arrested. He gave you up to the police in exchange for a lighter sentence. You're now looking at additional years for evidence tampering, Marcus. I let the paper fall to the desk, my eyes never leaving his. That baby was yours. You killed our child so you could go screw your secretary. And you tried to use his death to destroy me. You are the most contemptible human being I have ever met. He crumbled. It wasn't a man crying. It was a visceral, primal dissolution of a soul. He wailed, a guttural, keening sound of absolute horror at the truth of his own monstrousness. I watched him for a moment longer, this hollow, weeping husk, and I realized with a sudden, blinding clarity that there was nothing left of the man I had loved. He had been a phantom this whole time. A lie I had told myself. I hung up the phone. He was pounding on the glass, screaming my name, begging for forgiveness that no longer existed in my vocabulary. I stood up, turned my back on him, and walked out. I didn't look back. I never would. 08. 1 month later. My corner office on the top floor of Bright Future. The Shanghai skyline sparkled under a brilliant blue sky, the smog and storms of the past months having cleared to reveal a crisp, endless horizon. I was sitting in my chair, my feet propped on the windowsill, watching the city below hum with life. There was a knock, and David Zhang walked in, a wide, genuine smile on his face. He was holding a thick, official-looking document bound with a red ribbon. Special delivery from the Securities Regulatory Commission, he announced, placing it on my desk. Our IPO application has been fast-tracked and approved. Bright Future Technologies will be listed on the STAR market next month. I picked up the document, feeling its satisfying weight. It was real. We had survived the scandal, the stock had rebounded to new, dizzying heights, and the market was salivating over our AI portfolio. My net worth had increased tenfold. The dream has come true, Uncle David, I said softly. He sat down across from me, his expression shifting to something more paternal, more gentle. Your father told me you were coming for dinner tonight. It's been a long time. He told me something else, Susan, about his early days. You know he was betrayed by his original partner, right? Someone he considered a brother. Tried to steal the company, just like Marcus. He let the parallel hang in the air. He never interfered in your fight. He said it was your war to win. He said he believed you were stronger than he ever was. And he was right. My eyes stung. I blinked quickly and looked back out the window. He also told me to tell you something, David said, standing up to leave. He said, "Tell my daughter the house is ready. It's time to come home." That evening, I drove to my father's estate in the western suburbs. The high walls and ancient trees were as familiar as a childhood lullaby. I parked the car and walked to the front door. He was already there, standing in the doorway in a simple cotton shirt, a gentle smile on his aging face. He looked older than I remembered, softer.
"Dinner's ready," he said.
Your favorite, sweet and sour ribs. I followed him inside. The house smelled of home-cooked food and old wood. It was unchanged from my childhood. The same grandfather clock ticking in the hall, the same worn leather armchair by the fireplace. We ate in a comfortable silence for a while. Then, he put down his chopsticks and looked at me. "You look tired, Wenjing." "I am tired, Dad." It was the first time I'd admitted it out loud. "It was a brutal fight," he said. "But you won it cleanly. I'm proud of you." "David told me about your old partner." "I never knew." He nodded, a shadow passing over his face. It almost broke me. For years, I let the bitterness consume me. I turned hard. I was a worse father to you, a worse man, because I couldn't let go of the hate. He reached across the table and placed his weathered hand over mine. "Don't make my mistake.
You've won.
You have the company, the power, the future. Don't let what he did poison the rest of your life. Forgive him, not for his sake, but for your own. Let it go. Truly let it go." The tears I'd been holding back for months, for years, finally spilled over. They ran silently down my cheeks and dripped onto the table. He didn't say anything. He just held my hand and let me cry. I cried for the child I'd lost, for the 7 years of my life I'd given to a mirage, for the naive girl I used to be, the one who believed in fairy tales. When the sobs finally subsided, I felt lighter,
Hollow but clean.
ready to be filled with something new. "I'm home, Dad," I whispered. He smiled. "Welcome back." Later that night, as I was getting ready to leave, my phone buzzed. An email from Arthur. The final sentencing for Marcus had come through. 12 years in a maximum security prison. The divorce was finalized. The asset seizure was complete. Everything was over. I stepped out of my father's house and into the cool night air. The stars were visible, a rarity in the city, bright and sharp against the velvet blackness. I looked up at them, feeling the vastness of the universe and my own small, resilient place within it. I was 31 years old. I was the CEO of a tech empire. My heart had been broken, trampled, and cauterized. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I was completely, utterly free. I got into my car, turned on the engine, and drove away from the past and into the wide, open, and unwritten future.